Greetings, fellow gamers. It's the Lep, here to talk to you about the upcoming entry in the Mana series, Echoes of Mana. If you're already familiar, feel free to jump ahead. First, I'd like to give some information about Echoes of Mana. It's slated to come out this spring, and it is a mobile action RPG game. It is free to play, but it's also a gacha game, meaning a major focus will be on summoning for characters and possibly weapons or artifacts, but we'll talk about that later. Think games like Genshin Impact or Raid Shadow Legends. While you will be able to spend money, it's not required, and most games like this have plenty of opportunity for those of us who choose to be free to play. If that doesn't deter you, and if you're a fan of the Mana series or looking for a cute action RPG on mobile, then I encourage you to keep watching. Echoes of Mana promises to mix characters from all previous Mana titles, plus a new roster of original characters and monsters. Hopefully, they'll make it easy for you to pair up with your faves and play in a new scenario. Before we dive into what we know and what we can possibly infer with the information we have so far, let's review how to pre-register and enter the first official raffle. Using this link, which I'll also add in the description and pinned comment, you can pre-register either via the Apple Store or Google Play Store. This game will likely remain exclusively mobile, so do not expect to see it on consoles. A potential workaround could be to use an emulator such as BlueStacks on PC. However, we have seen a recent trend of some mobile or gacha games making this difficult to do. Here's hoping it is accessible and that we'll be able to switch between platforms easily. Either way, follow the links from your devices and sign up. There will be rewards the more people pre-register. Additionally, if you go to the Echoes of Mana official Twitter, like this tweet, retweet it, and then comment, and or go to the official Facebook page, like the page, like this post, and comment to possibly win one of these adorable music boxes. Make sure to check the full details as it may only apply to certain countries. Links in description and comments. Next up, I'd like to do a bit of a breakdown of the English Livestream that was hosted a few days ago. The Square Enix community managers showed some gameplay, and they had some community questions that were asked to the producers of the game. To explain better what was shared, and also to have a little bit of a look at the information shared in the Japanese livestream, I'm going to jump around in terms of actual video chronology. If you're still interested after, I do recommend checking out the live stream on the official Twitch page though. First and foremost, the pre-register is for Apple Store and the Google Play Store. They said that the game will support the following languages: Japanese, English, German, French, Korean, and traditional Chinese. Unfortunately, no Spanish nor Portuguese. Additionally, there seems to only be Japanese voiceover. This will only be the text that is in those respective languages. They also noted that the game will not have controller support, only the mobile touch controls. I find this very disappointing given that it is an action RPG, but I'm hoping there will be some workaround for this, possibly again through emulators. I'm personally not a huge fan of this approach, but if you're someone who is well acclaimed to mobile action games, then I'm sure you won't have an issue. They did mention the controls felt smooth and they didn't encounter issues. But in 2022, when Bluetooth controller support is easily available for iOS and Android, it feels like a major oversight, especially given the console history for the Mana series. Anyway, rant over. In the live stream, they showed part of the tutorial. It is very important to note that everything they showed was still a development build and thus is subject to potential change. You open the game and you select which gender you want to play. Functionally, the two characters are the same, and you can rename the main character. You're introduced to the story. In broad strokes, you've been chosen by the Mana goddess to help save the Mana tree, probably, like we see with many of the classic Mana games. To do this, you'll use echoes of Mana from the Mana fruit, which grow on, of course, the Mana tree. After some gameplay tutorial, you're then taken to the home city hub, the city of Pinston. Now, looking at the different characters we know of so far, first of all, we will have the main character, Quilto or Quilta, depending on the gender that you pick. And it looks like that character is a spear user. They also introduced us to Bashir, who's probably the mascot, and then to Duffel, who wields an axe or spear, and Honeycomb, who is a staff user. In the Japan live stream, they also showed us Watts and Mrs. Modi, who I suspect, and again, just speculation because I don't speak Japanese, I suspect that these characters are going to be in-game NPCs related to some of the in-game shops. Additionally, we know that one of the pre-registration rewards that can be unlocked is a 3-star version of Prim using a boomerang weapon. If we peek over to the Japanese live stream, they also announced that from Final Fantasy Adventure, characters that will be available will be Amanda, Sumo, aka Hero or Boy, Julius, and Dark Lord. From Secret of Mana, there will be Prim, Randy, Papoy, and Thanatos. From Trials of Mana, we will have Duran, Hawkeye, Kevin, Reese, Charlotte, and Angela. From Legend of Mana, we'll have Shiloh, aka the hero, Seraphina, aka the heroine, Nicolo, and Sierra. From Dawn of Mana, we'll have Lechius and Keldrick. And finally, from Children of Mana, we'll have Ferric and Wanderer. Of course, there will likely be many more characters added in the future, but these are probably what we'll be able to find at launch. In addition to that, when it comes to monsters or enemies, they introduced a new monster enemy type who's called Nitwit, very cute looking, and they mentioned that there will also, in addition to new monsters, be plenty of the classics like Rabbite, Mushboom, Mantis Ant, and Full Metal Hugger, just to name a few. Now, I think it's important to note that in many games like this, characters come at different levels of rarity, and in this case, it looks like that will be ranked based on stars. When we peeked into some of the gameplay on the live stream, they showed that the starter characters, the main character of Quilto or Quilta, seems to be a 1-star character, and then Duffel and Honeycomb, the other 2 starter characters, seem to be 2-star characters. We do know that you can summon up to at least 4-star characters because one of the tickets that they accidentally showed to us in the live stream was a 4-star summon ticket. But also looking at the gameplay, it looks like you may be able to upgrade characters up to 6 stars. So we'll have to wait for more information around the exact details of that process. But typically, the lower a star ranking a character has, the lower power level they have, the lower their skills are. They're usually much more entry and basic, and very likely what will happen over time is that as you start to summon additional characters who have a higher star ranking or rarity, they will have stronger attack, maybe better skills or stat growth, things of that nature. We also know that there are 2 features of each character that are somewhat locked, at least for the launch of the game. And this is to do with the weapon type that they use, as well as their element type, or the mana spirit with which they are associated. And you can see this reflected in some of the images that we've seen and some of the gameplay. We do know that the weapons will be locked. Characters with a different weapon are considered a separate character themselves. So for example, there are at least 2 different versions of Prim with different weapons, and also, therefore, with different mana spirits. They did note, however, that in the future, not for launch, but sometime down the line, they're going to have some characters that will have a way to change their class similar to what we saw in Trials of Mana. They did not elaborate on that too much, though. And speaking of the mana spirits that are associated with characters, this goes the same for enemies, and you can see in some of the gameplay that enemies have certain elemental or mana spirit weaknesses, so there will be some type advantage here. Now, I want to talk a bit about some of the currencies, tickets, and login rewards. First and foremost, we know that there will be these things called spirit crystals, which are similar to gems or some type of premium currency that you may have seen in other games. And part of the pre-registration goals that we can hit is to get up to 2,700 spirit crystals. Now, this is again likely the main premium currency in the game. It'll be used probably for summoning, other quality of life purchases in the game, and of course this is the currency that will be the purchasable one using real world money, so the microtransactions. We also saw that there's lucre, which is the gold of the game, usually obtained by defeating enemies or clearing stages and battles. And this one is not necessarily tied to real world money. It's probably going to be used for things like upgrading characters, leveling them up, upgrading items, things of that nature. And of course, every game nowadays has some kind of login rewards. And we saw accidentally an example of that in the English Livestream. Again, noting that they are not necessarily final, but those login rewards could potentially include spirit crystals, summon tickets, or energy refills. When it comes to summoning for characters or re-rolling for the characters, what we know so far is that the summoning animation is very cute. It has you pick a fruit from the mana tree to get an echo, as they're called, of one of the characters from the series.
Or she stands at the tree depending on which quota.
Yeah, I always pick the female characters. Can't stop me. Oh, I forgot to turn the light on. I might have to go on a be right back screen. Like, you'll just see my background just get progressively more green until it shatters the illusion that I'm not in the mana tree right now. Ooh, yay! We got Seraphina.
Yeah.
That's a spear. I also am partial to spear wielders, so.
Guided by Calling Dreams Seraphina.
Oh, yeah.
Tap to continue.
After the first actual gameplay stage, you'll have a tutorial harvest, which you can re-roll an unlimited number of times, but it only allows you to summon one character. Now, you are guaranteed a minimum of a 3-star ally echo, and it can be from adventures, secret, trials, or legends. The summon banners will show the drop rate or the percentage chance of getting a specific character, and it looked like there might be some method of testing out a character before you actually summon. Again, we need to see more actual gameplay before we can have a final confirmation on that. In many other gacha games, there's this concept of reroll where you either recreate your account entirely from scratch to try and get the optimal characters for your account to start off with the best foot forward. It's not quite clear if the developers are hoping that having this unlimited reroll on the tutorial harvest will deter players from trying to completely restart an account. Now I want to talk a bit about memory gems. Memory gems seem to be a type of equipment in Echoes of Mana similar to artifacts in other games. For example, we know that one of the pre-registration rewards is a 4-star memory gem. Based on this information, it seems like Echoes of Mana may not have weapons that we'll need to summon or pull for, but probably memory gems instead. It is important to note, though, when we look at some of the gameplay, it looks like you don't necessarily have different weapons to equip for characters, just the memory gems. However, it does appear that there will be usable items that can be equipped to the team when you go into battle. I would still like to see a bit more gameplay to get a final answer on that. Typically, items such as these memory gems will give you some boost to either your character's stats, some type of additional power to your skill, something like that, which will help you become even stronger in your battles. And talking about the battles, when it comes to team building, you can have up to 3 characters on your team, each which will have a substitute character, bringing the total to 6 in a party. While you're in battle, you can easily switch between which character you're primarily controlling as well as the substitute, swapping the substitute in and out. They have also mentioned that there will be co-op available. There was some demonstration of this in the Japanese live stream, and they also showed some information like being able to have in-game chat or kind of emoticon chat between players, but I think we will really need another English Livestream or some kind of demonstration for us to get the full feel of how this works. But it did appear that they had 3 players in the Japanese Livestream, all using a roster of 3 characters each. When it comes to actual gameplay, there are a few different modes that they mentioned. First of all, there's the main story quest, which will follow the main protagonist of the game and likely introduce you to the world that is being built within Echoes of Mana and start to bring in some of the characters from the previous entries in the series. There will be event quests, which they said were similar to side stories where you get to see different characters from the Mana series interact with one another. That is, characters from the series but not necessarily from the same games. There will, of course, be training quests, which are the typical side quests that you'll use to farm for character upgrade materials or maybe equipment upgrade materials, experience upgrades, things of that nature. And they lastly mentioned tower quests, which they expect to be the high-level content. When we did look at some of the main story quests or stages, I did note that they had tabs for normal, hard, and very hard modes. So it appears that there will be scaling levels of difficulty. Typically in games like this, before you can unlock the hard mode, you need to complete normal mode, and same goes for very hard and hard. These will usually have better rewards, but also need you to be a bit stronger before you can tackle those. And when we look at the different levels that we can play through, they have a recommended power level for your team shown, and maybe even the option to have it recommend which characters you should bring to that battle or to that stage. There will also be the option to skip scenarios and turn on auto venture, presumably the autoplay mode. And at least in the main story, and very likely in some of the event and probably other quest types, there will be a mixture of story levels and then actual combat levels. So some story levels might just be a cutscene between the characters. Now, some stages will have energy requirements to play, so like many other mobile titles, part of the waiting game will come into play at some point with Echoes of Mana. Stages will have missions to complete, plus a clear time ranking. It's not quite clear how those factor into your rewards, but presumably they will. And completing a stage will give you account XP, plus experience to the characters that you brought along with you into that battle. For the actual action RPG, the actual gameplay, the producers did mention that it was inspired by Secret of Mana, Legend of Mana, and Trials of Mana for their 2D action elements while incorporating mobile elements. Now, obviously, if we look around the battle screen a bit, we have your standard HP or health points, MP or magic points, and then ST, which is the special technique gauge, which we'll talk about in a moment. To move your character around the screen, use the touch feature on the left-hand side, and if we look at the right-hand side, the normal attack is the big button on the right, and then we have skills that are the smaller buttons on the right, and these cost MP to use. Each character will have 2 skills, and from what we've seen so far, usually one skill seems to be an attack skill, and the other one seems to be some kind of self-buff. There also appears to be an evade button, which looks like that little jump icon. And then there's the special technique, which can be used as you build the special technique gauge, or that ST gauge. You can see that it also has a swap character button, which is represented by the arrows above the second skill. And then in the top right-hand corner of the screen, there's the Mega Spirit Magic. You build this gauge by using the special techniques to unleash your ultimate attack. There does seem to be some type of hit combo counter that goes during battle. It isn't quite clear what that charge is or what that brings, but likely that helps to build the special technique gauge. One thing that I noted, which is a bit different from some of the Mana games, is that the loot from defeating monsters is automatically picked up, so you don't need to run around the screen trying to catch it, sending me back to my Legend of Mana playthrough. And I think what's really critical here is that not only can you swap easily between the main character that you have and the substitute character, but they also make it really easy to switch between which character in your party that you are primarily controlling, and leaving the other two to be controlled by the AI of the game. And that's everything that I have for you in this video. I know it was a lot of information. I hope you found it helpful with some of this analysis of the live stream. I'm really looking forward to this game, and I hope you are as well. If there's anything that you feel I missed from the English live stream, or if there's any points you feel should be clarified, or if you have any information on the Japanese live stream, please feel free to share it with me here. Otherwise, have a great day.